Hey everyone, I am Bimal Maharjan, founder of Gutsphere, and I want to thank you for joining me on this journey into understanding and managing Irritable Bowel Syndrome, or IBS. Now, if you have been dealing with unexplained stomach discomfort, unpredictable bathroom trips, or just this constant sense of unease in your gut, you are not alone. IBS is something that can turn everyday life upside down, and yet, so many of us don't talk about it. But here is the thing, it's time to change that. That's why I have created the ultimate IBS masterclass, understanding and managing IBS for every stage of severity. In this series, we'll take a deep dive into every aspect of IBS, from the science behind the symptoms to the tools and strategies that can help you regain control of your life. And we will do it in a way that's holistic, evidence-based, and grounded in the latest scientific research. My goal isn't just to help you manage IBS, it's to help you truly understand the root causes of this condition so you can take proactive steps towards long-term relief. So what makes this series different from other health podcasts or videos out there? The difference lies in our approach. We are not just talking about surface level tips or temporary fixes. In this podcast, you can expect three things. 1. Scientific rigor. Everything we discuss is backed by research with a focus on understanding the mechanisms behind IBS and how it affects the body. Holistic solutions. We'll talk about diet, mental health, lifestyles, modifications, and even the role of gut-brain axis. Evidence-based tools. Our focus is on what actually works, from clinical studies to real-world experience, so you can take actionable steps right after watching. Whether you are just beginning to experience symptoms or have been living with IBS for years, this series is designed for you. And that's important because IBS is more than just a condition. It's something that impacts every aspect of your life. So before we started, I want to make a quick disclaimer. The information provided in this series is for educational purpose only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or treatment plan for IBS or any other condition. Now, with that said, let's get started. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is IBS and why does it affect so many people? IBS, or Irritable Bowel Syndrome, is a functional gastrointestinal disorder. What that means is that while everything may look normal when you have tests done, your gut is not inflamed, you don't have ulcers, your digestive system still doesn't work the way it should. People with IBS often experience abdominal pain, bloating, and changes in bowel habits, like constipation or diarrhea. It's not just occasional discomfort, it's a chronic condition, and that can flare up unpredictably. And here's what's striking. IBS affects 10 to 15% of the global population. That's hundreds of millions of people. But what's really frustrating is that IBS is often misdiagnosed or dismissed. Many people are told it's just stress or it's all in your head. And while stress can definitely make symptoms worse, IBS is a real physical condition. It's not something you just need to get over. That's one of the reasons IBS remains such a hidden epidemic. Millions of people are suffering, but they don't know where to turn for help. Let me share a few interesting and lesser known facts about IBS that you might have heard before. When we think about IBS, we often see it as this modern issue, something that's a product of our current lifestyle. But IBS isn't new, it's been around for centuries. In fact, IBS was first described way back in 1849 by a doctor named Dr. Cumming in the London Medical Gazette. That's over 170 years ago, long before we had advanced diagnostic tools or a real understanding of the condition. Even back then, doctors were observing the same symptoms we see today: abdominal pain, bloating, irregular bowel movements, but they didn't yet have the science to explain it. As the time went on, our understanding of IBS evolved, and one of the most fascinating discoveries in the recent years is the gut-brain connection. Now, we often hear people say, "I have a gut feeling," or "my stomach is in knots." But that's not just a figure of speech. The gut is actually considered our second brain. It's connected to the brain in your head through something called gut-brain axis, which allows your gut and brain to communicate with each other. This connection helps regulate not only your digestion but also your emotions. So when you are stressed or anxious, your gut feels it. And this is why IBS symptoms tend to flare up during stressful times. But here is the surprising part. Despite how common IBS is, affecting around again 10 to 15% of the population, only about 50% of the people with symptoms actually seek medical care. Most people either suffer in silence or try to manage their symptoms on their own. Why? Well, for many, it's embarrassing to talk about digestive issues. Others might be told by friends, family, or even doctors that it's just stress and that they should just deal with it. But that's not true. IBS is real physical condition that deserves proper care. Another interesting fact is that IBS is more common in people under the age of 50. It's especially prevalent in younger and middle-aged adults. Though it can affect people of all ages, many times people are surprised to learn that IBS isn't just an older person's condition, and they are not alone in their experience. And did you know that initial infection can sometimes trigger long-term IBS? It's called post-infectious IBS, and it happens in about 36% of the people who experience gastroenteritis, which is basically a stomach infection, which starts as a common stomach bug, can lead to months or even years of digestive issues. For some people, this shows how delicate and interconnected our gut health really is. Here is another surprising fact. Women are up to twice as likely as men to develop IBS. While we don't fully understand why, we believe it may be connected to hormonal differences. Hormonal changes during the menstrual cycle, for example, can influence gut function and may play a role in why women experience IBS more than men. And finally, one of the most troubling things about IBS is the high rate of unnecessary surgeries performed on patients. This is especially true for women. In fact, 40% 47 to 55% of the women with IBS have procedures like hysterectomy or ovarian surgery that didn't actually solve their problems. Why does this happen? Because the pain and the discomfort of IBS can sometimes mimic other conditions, leading to surgeries that do not address the root cause. This is why understanding IBS and getting the right diagnosis is so important. There's a lot of misinformation about IBS that we need to clear up. One of the biggest myths is that IBS isn't a serious condition. The truth is, IBS can significantly affect your quality of life. It's not just about some discomfort here and there. Its impact everything from your work to your relationships and even your mental health. Just because IBS doesn't show up on blood tests or scans doesn't mean it's not real or serious. Another misconception is that you need a lot of tests to diagnose IBS. People often assume that they'll have to go through invasive or uncomfortable procedures. But in reality, IBS is usually diagnosed based on your symptoms. Unless there is a suspicion of something else, most people do not need extensive testing to get a diagnosis. Then there is a belief that IBS is simply caused by stress. While stress can definitely make symptoms worse, it's not the root cause. IBS is a functional disorder of the gut. It's not all in your head or purely psychological. Stress management can help, but it's not the whole answer. This is an important distinction because many people get discouraged when they're told it's just stress, when in fact it's much more complex. People also tend to think that only a drastic diet can help manage IBS. While diet changes can be useful for some, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. And not everyone needs to follow a restrictive diet. It's more about figuring out what works for your specific body, what triggers your symptoms, and what does not. There's also this notion that IBS only affects older people, but the reality is IBS is more common in people under 50. It's especially prevalent in younger and middle-aged adults, which surprises a lot of people because it's often seen as something that only affects the elderly. And finally, one of the most common fears I hear is that IBS can turn into something more serious, like cancer. Let me be clear, IBS does not turn into cancer or any other serious conditions like inflammatory bowel disease. It's a chronic condition, yes, but it doesn't lower your life expectancy. That's why it's so important to manage your symptoms and live life fully without constantly worrying about what might come next. Now, one of the things that can be really confusing about IBS is how symptoms can change over time. It's not a static condition. One month, you might be dealing with constipation, predominant IBS, which is called IBS-C, and the next, you might experience diarrhea, predominant IBS, IBS-D. In fact, studies have shown that only about 61% of the patients remain in the same IBS subtype over time. For some people, symptoms get worse during stressful periods. For others, a change in diet or routine can trigger a flare-up. And it's not uncommon for patients to go through long periods where their symptoms are manageable, only to have them return later with no clear cause. This variability is part of what makes IBS so frustrating to deal with, but it's also why we need to approach it from multiple angles: diet, lifestyle, mental health, and of course, understanding the science behind it all. So that's what we are here to do with the Ultimate IBS Masterclass. We are going to take you through everything from the gut brain connection to dietary interventions to how you can manage stress to reduce flare ups. We'll cover probiotics, the role of the gut microbiome, and give you actionable tools you can use right away to start feeling better. And at Gutsphere, our mission is to provide holistic, accessible solutions for GI health. By the end of this series, I hope you will have a clear understanding of IBS and the steps you can take to live a life that isn't defined by it. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for next episode, where we will dive deeper into how the gut-brain connection plays a role in IBS symptoms. I'm excited to take this journey with you. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode, where we will dive deeper into gut-brain connection and how it impacts IBS. Together, we'll help you manage your symptoms, regain control, and living life without letting IBS define you.